Hello and welcome to Africa This Week with me, Annisa Omar. This show looks at the affairs of sub-Saharan Africa and the African diaspora. Today we'll be discussing comments from Senegal's President Macky Sall and his clampdown on Muslim clerics associated with fringe groups. Our dosage of articles on the diaspora, which caught our eye this week, is also coming up. In light of Remembrance Day honouring soldiers in World War I, we look at how Africans and the Commonwealth contributed. But first, campaigning kicked off on Sunday in Burkina Faso, ahead of crucial November 29th national vote, which interim leader Michael Kafando said will be key to consolidating democracy weeks after a failed coup hit the West African country. Adama Munu has more on this and the rest of the week's headline news.
The attempted overthrow was derailed within days by popular uprising. Much as street protests toppled former strongman Blaise Compaoré at the end of October 2014. Rochmark Christian Kabore, one of the favourites in Burkina Faso's presidential vote on the 29th of November, launched his campaign.
Notre mandat portera le sceau de l'intégrité. Et nous avons dit, l'intégrité a des exigences. C'est des exigences d'abord du travail bien fait. C'est des exigences d'amour pour sa patrie. C'est des exigences de bonne gouvernance.
In the most controversial decision ahead of the vote, the interim authorities have ruled that nobody who backed Compaoré's bid to keep power can stand for elected office. The chief executive of South Africa-based mobile phone operator MTN resigned on Monday over a $5.2 billion fine imposed on the company in Nigeria. Sefiso Debangwa, former CEO of Africa's largest telecoms firm, resigned as Nigeria's Communications Commission penalised the company for missing a deadline to deactivate 5.1 million unregistered SIM cards. Diana Games, the executive director of the South African-Nigeria Chamber of Commerce, said the government appeared to be acting for financial insecurity reasons, citing that Boko Haram could be using unregistered SIM cards to plot more attacks. Angola marked 40 years of independence on Wednesday, with President José Eduardo dos Santos vowing to bring progress to the country, but rights groups accused him of ruling through what they called fear and repression. Dos Santos, who has been in power since 4 years after independence from Portugal, opened a huge new parliament in the capital Luanda to celebrate the anniversary. In a speech inaugurating the building, he vowed to respect human rights and basic freedoms in Angola. Angola was engulfed in a 27-year civil war after independence, with a ceasefire finally signed in 2002. European Union and African leaders on Thursday approved a €1.8 billion action plan they hope will stem explosive flows of migrants across the Mediterranean. The plan, which immediately came under fire from Senegal President Macky Sall, include provisions on speeding up the repatriation of failed asylum seekers, as well as a limited expansion of opportunities for legal migration. An emergency trust fund of €1.8 billion will finance development projects and address causes of pressures caused by migration, including repressive governance, poverty and conflict. The joint plan was approved at the end of a 2-day summit in Malta this week, despite misgivings among some African governments over what they see as a trend towards a fortress Europe. The UN Security Council unanimously adopted a resolution on Thursday that could pave the way for peacekeepers to be deployed to Burundi. The French-drafted measure strongly condemned the wave of killings, torture, arrests and other rights violations. This follows a UN human rights official who said on Tuesday that the UN is less equipped to deal with the crisis than it was in dealing with Rwanda before the 1994 genocide. Last weekend, a UN employee was among those killed in Burundi in an armed attack on a bar by gunmen dressed in police uniforms. Senegal's President Macky Sall has called for a fight against what he describes as the excessive form of Islam, which has led to the growth of radical groups. Last week, Senegalese officials said 2 imams had been charged with money laundering and suspected links with Muslim militia. It is the first such case in Senegal, a mainly Muslim country, less known for violence linked to radical groups. Other West African states, including Nigeria and Mali, are battling militia linked to Al-Qaeda or the Islamic State group. Speaking at a peace and security conference in the capital Dakar on Monday, Mr. Saul said people should have the courage to fight this excessive form of Islam and that such groups should not be allowed to impose another form of religion, which he said did not correspond to the practice of Muslims in the country as a whole.
Joining me to discuss the last story is Alhagie Jobe, a journalist observing Gambian and Senegalese affairs. Thank you for joining us, Alhagie. So, to start the discussion, what is this tolerant Islam that President Macky is speaking of?
Well, President Macky Sall appeared on an international forum in Dakar on Monday on peace and security, where he denounced what he called the extremists trying to enter Senegal like they do in Chad, Nigeria, Cameroon, and other places. This came following the arrest of an imam in a village called Kaulach, just 2 kilometers away from Dakar, for preaching about extremism and supporting terrorism. The imam called Alindao was arrested alongside 6 other supporters who are currently detained at the State Central Prison in Dakar.
So what is it exactly that Macky's saying? He's saying that he wants to try and maintain and enclose this fringe ideology?
Yes, President Sall totally denounced the new Islamic ideology that some of these Islamic scholars are trying to nurture on people. He said Islam is a religion of peace and has ever had its own principles, and it will ever remain the same.
And how does he aim to do that?
Well, the comments came following the arrest of the imam. Now he's denouncing the appearance of certain people or Muslim lead women wearing their veils in a way that is totally unacceptable in Islam. According to him, the wearing of the veil in an overall form is totally not in accordance with Islam. And according to President Sall as well, it's the same way the suicide bombers and other extremists wear and do the suicidal in places like Niger, Chad, and other places. Especially the Boko Haram. We cited them as the best example in a neighboring country.
Okay, so you're saying it's not in accordance with Islam. I understand that Islam has been in Senegal since the 11th century and that it's very much entrenched. Would you say that this new sort of fringe ideology is really pushing this tradition aside and bringing a new frontier?
Indeed, Islam is the dominating religion in Senegal, with one can say 95%, 97% of the population. But that doesn't mean they have the right to do anything they feel like. Probably the country is dominated, yes, indeed. Everybody knows the country is dominated by Muslims. But the comments of President Macky Sall was denounced by Muslim scholars all over the country.
Okay, so comments, but he's saying that he wants to reform the clerics and try and train them in a way that is the usual traditional form of Islam that Senegal presents. So how is he going to realistically train clerics?
Well, he has instructed the Ministry of Interior to work with the Supreme Islamic Council in Senegal.
Okay.
To meet with the imams and discuss this issue properly before he takes any action against them. He wants a decision that will be made among them, the imam and the authorities from the government, before any other government step. If they fail to meet any agreement, according to him, he will take his own step and wipe them out of Senegal. But they will never practice another religion different from Islam.
Okay, so That's a way of getting to the clerics. But do you think it's just about clerics? Do you think perhaps there's a wider picture in terms of media and other influences that could be bringing this fringe ideology on board?
Yeah, that's media. Total media, very, very, very important lessons from the media. Just last night, a very prominent guy and a proprietor of one of the biggest media organizations called What Party was on TV and denounced the comments made by the president and the actions he wants to take against Muslims, especially women, wearing the veil in that manner. According to him, the president he called him anti-Islam. He totally condemned the president's action, saying since he came to power, he has never supported anything in support of Islam. He mentioned the protest march the president went to Paris during the Charlie Hebdo attack when they caricatured the prophet, the holy prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, which he said the president shouldn't have been there, and he went there and was protesting on the streets. Again, he's back and now saying women should not wear an overall veil because they can be suicidal. We should take example from other countries, this and that. So he totally condemned the president, and not only him, many of the other Muslim scholars as well condemned the president.
So this is the reaction. Is this the reaction from Muslim clerics? They're not happy with these comments. Do you think this comment coming from a president is unusual or it's necessary?
It's unusual indeed, but it's very necessary, yeah, but very unusual in a Muslim-dominated country like Senegal.
And do you think
many are saying you have instituted a team or a panel of advisors on religion who have advised him prior to making certain comments, because Senegal is a Muslim-dominated country and he cannot change the minds of the people.
Okay, Alhagie, very, very interesting comments from as you say, very interesting comments coming from Senegal. Now we'll be looking at our articles this week, what that caught our eye. Joining me, we have Lagoon Agloy, who is a political commentator on West African affairs and works as a public relations officer for Central Association of Nigerians in the UK. Welcome to the show, Lagoon.
Thank you for having me. Thank you. Thank you very much.
So we've got some articles for the week.
We do, some very interesting ones.
What's our first one?
The first one has to do with the swearing in of the 36 ministers by the President Buhari of Nigeria. He became president in April of this year.
And where's this article from?
This article is from the Abuja magazine. Yeah.
Abuja magazine.
Yeah, yeah. Buhari came in on a crest of hope. Nigerians yearned for change. He defeated the incumbent Goodluck Jonathan, which was the first time this actually happened in Nigeria. The PDP, who Goodluck was the president of, have been in power for 16 years since Nigeria gained independence.
So who are these ministers that he's brought in? I heard that there was a former UK accountant. Is she going to resolve the economic crisis of Nigeria?
The Minister of Finance, Kemi Adeosun, she actually is one of the guiding lights in the new administration for the sheer reason that she's a UK-trained economist, the former commissioner of Ogun State in southwest Nigeria, and is somebody who Buhari thinks can really change things up and put Nigeria's
Is she the only one? I heard that there's an oil minister that's come in, but didn't Buhari say that he was going to deal with oil himself?
Buhari has given himself the oil portfolio. What he's done is he's created a Minister of State, Ibe Kawachuku, who will be his deputy oil minister.
Interesting. So what's our second article?
Second article is the 40 years since Angola got independence. Angola fought a long, drawn-out war with Portugal, which ended in 1975 to get the independence.
And where's this article from?
The article is written by a guy called Rafael Duamores, and I think it's from the Angolan Times.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, it basically details how Angola, at this current point, though they've been independent for the past 40 years, in the country themselves, they've encountered problems. Freedom of speech is not entirely there. And people are complaining about human rights violations, and people are even going as far as to say that he's formed a corrupt clique around him. They mention in the article his daughter, Isabel dos Santos, who is the richest woman in Africa. She's worth $3 billion. They say that how can she be worth that much money? Where's the money coming from? They also reference the partnership between Portugal and Angola. Angola, over the past 5 to 10 years, has been investing heavily in Portugal.
So Portugal is the former colonial power.
Yeah.
So
the tables have turned in certain ways.
Yes, because I know I'd seen this article also in the Guardian. So I think it's well spread. In terms of it being a colonial state, do you think that this new state is just another colonial state that's replicated?
I wouldn't say it's a new colonial state. I would say they're asking for what has changed since colonial days. They're complaining that they kicked out the Portuguese only to be replaced by a regime that is even as brutal. But at the same time, I think Angola has been going through some progress. The oil revenue has been rising, but the question is the money's not being distributed back into the people. So that's where everyone's been
Where's
getting
the money going? I heard it's going elsewhere. I think it might be going back to the colonial.
I think that the government in Angola have been investing in Portuguese banks and industries and like real estate, and you know, the money is being sent abroad, but at the same time, you know.
So still the colonial structures.
The colonial structures are still quite strong in terms,
resources effectively
in terms of the partnership, yes.
Going out. So what's our third story, Lagoon?
Our third story at this current time, our third story is about the end of Ebola from SEM News. Ebola for the past, I think it's 30 days, there have not been
Since the weekend.
There's not been a single case that has been reported. The main three countries were Liberia, Sierra Leone, and Guinea. In total, I think it was 11,000 people died, 28,000 were infected. Now, this is a brilliant thing for Africa and the world for the sheer reason that Ebola was something very difficult and people found it very hard to challenge.
And do you think these celebrations have perhaps come too soon?
I
Or
would say
that every victory is great?
I would say celebrations are in order for the sheer reason that you and I both were aware about how difficult and how serious it was when Ebola first hit and the people who lost their lives. The World Health Organization and numerous NGOs are actually on ground to prevent, you know, it from coming again and to make sure that all cases are reported.
And is this article is suggesting that there's a lot more to do? So what else is there to do to get rid of Ebola?
The article does say, it ends with, but the challenges still remain. The challenges revolve around actually reaching those who need the help. One of the main issues with Ebola and why it spread that fast is because many people were not aware of the symptoms and were scared to report it. The article details a French doctor who had a maid who was from Sierra Leone and she became sick. The maid lied to him that she didn't touch anybody or wasn't around anybody who was ill. Shortly after the French doctor died, but he mentioned that I wouldn't be sick if people would discuss it.
So it's giving more of a humane picture, human stories.
Exactly. The main issue is to be aware, to discuss it, and to report it if it's there, not to keep quiet. So I think that the medical aspect of things are being taken care of by the various governments and NGOs and, you know, people on the ground.
Great.
So hopefully it won't return.
So the international community is doing its bit.
I think the international community are reinforcing the medical structures of these countries who have been bedeviled by it. So hopefully, with their coordinated efforts, things should, like, you know, maintain.
Move on. Hopefully. So what's our fourth article again?
The fourth article is why the black poppy really matters. Now, the black poppy is...
I know. Tell our viewers, what's the black poppy?
The Remembrance Day obviously happens between the 9th and the 11th of October each year in Britain, in which people commiserate and remember the dead of World War I and World War II.
So that was this week, then?
That was this week. The British Foreign Legion normally sell the red poppy, which everyone wears for like a week and 2 weeks. A lady, Selina Carley from London, created the black poppy. She did that to commemorate the soldiers from Africa, from the Caribbean, who are not entirely mentioned during Remembrance Day.
And why are they mentioned? But Selina we're going to have later on in the show, so she can give us more of a spiel. But from your perspective, why is it that the black soldiers' narrative within World War I is not told enough?
From my perspective, I mean, I think there is a certain element of bias towards who fought the war. I think everyone should be remembered, but because Britain played a forefront part in it, I think they think to themselves that, okay, maybe we should trump up our own benefits rather than others. But everyone knows that Indians fought, Pakistanis fought, Nigerians fought, Ghanaians fought, and at the same time, I think they should all equally be remembered. But because Britain were at the forefront of it, and, you know, the victors always take all the glory, so, you know. But the black poppy, I think, even though mildly controversial, I must admit, and is bound to cause some tension, because you know how people get over such issues, but at the same time, I think it's a good stand on like a right issue.
And in terms of people, what would you say in the diaspora within Britain? Because this is a Black Poppy campaign.
Of course, yes.
British
and
focused.
the money will go to the West Indian Association of Service Personnel.
So what do you think as someone from the diaspora?
As being from the diaspora, I've always been fascinated with that story. I read a book by Barnaby Phillips, Another Man's War, in which he details the West African Rifle Battalion that fought for 2 years in Burma, who put their lives on the line for the British Empire. Now, these are stories that don't really get told, stories that are not really mentioned. These are something that, you know, has somehow slipped out of consciousness.
And that need to be told?
Of course need to be told.
To keep the narrative within history?
To keep the truth within history.
Thank you, Lagoon, for your comments.
Thanks for having me.
We're taking a short break now, but when we come back, we'll be delving into how the Commonwealth, and specifically Africa, played a pivotal role in World War I as part of Remembrance Week. See you in a moment.